they are forcing the evolution of the modality of language. It may be that the processing of language is not hardwired, not physiologically wired. It's a software function having to do with culture, language, upbringing, and so forth. Because some people claim they are great visualizers and that they do think visually and so forth. And we have no reason to deny this. So it may be that we are just a one gene or even an expression of gene ratios difference away from an entirely different way of processing communication between each other. And this is what the New Age, the end of history, the anticipation of this great breakthrough that we can feel but not really outline is about. If that seems far-fetched to you, you should notice how far-fetched the original emergence of language must have been. Because I think people were fully people and totally mute, or, unable to articulate a thought. And then either an accumulation of neurons or some synergistic effect was brought into play, and lo and behold, spoken language emerged out of that. Well, something similar could happen to us. In the morning session, I talked about the forced evolution of language, paying attention to our language. I really think that the way to think of these psychedelics is as catalysts for the imagination. If any of you are chemists, you know a catalyst is something that when you add it to a chemical process, the process is tremendously speeded up. But in the end, the catalyst is not destroyed. The catalyst is reconstituted at the end. So psychedelics, one way of thinking of them, is as a catalyst for cognition. The original description of psychedelic drugs was they were consciousness expanding drugs. Well, if we take the idea that they are consciousness expanding seriously for even a moment, then we have to put a lot of attention in on this, because it's the absence of consciousness that is murdering us and our planet. We need all the consciousness we can get. We need to wring it out of computers, get it out of plants, raise it in ourselves and our children. Wherever we can get it, we need it. And the present, the present situation with the planet is very dire because of us. Our unchecked evolution in a single direction along the gradient of culture has now created a toxic planet that is an endangered planet. Since this situation has arisen entirely within the confines of history, aren't we going to have to look outside of history in order to redress this problem? I think so. And when we do look outside history, then we find the institution of plant shamanism there, waiting to inform us, to educate us, and to show us how to set our a course out of the present dilemma. I don't think we can find our way out by ourselves. I don't think we can get high by ourselves, and I don't think as a species that we can save this planet by ourselves. We have to have a partner. We have to get an ally into this situation. Just in closing and as an example, the mushroom has a tremendous problem-solving ability. And because we can talk to it, we can ask it questions. We can actually get a non-human perspective on human problems. A few weeks ago, I made this statement before a group of people somewhere, and after the talk was over, somebody came up to me and said, well, so why don't you ask the mushroom how to save the world? And I just put it off, thought it was the wrong attitude. But then later I wondered about this question, how to save the world, and I thought, well, maybe I've been too circumspect with the mushroom. Maybe I should just put it to it. So I carried out the experiment and put to them, how do we save the world? And now I don't offer this as the solution. I'm going to tell you the mushroom's answer so that you can see how our backs aren't quite to the wall yet. There are still avenues to be explored. I said to the mushroom, how can we save the world? There was a hesitation of 1/3 of a second, approximately, and then the mushroom said, no woman should raise more than one natural child. And I said, what? Said, no woman should raise more than one natural child. So I took that home with me and I thought about it. Here are the consequences of following that piece of advice. The population of the earth would be cut in half in 50 years. 50 years following that, it would be cut in half again. 50 years after that, in half again. In 150 years, the population of the earth could be under 1 billion people. Nobody was shot. No wars were fought. No one was told they could not have a child. No one was coerced. No one was starved. Then I started looking into this thing about children and population. And most of you, like me, probably imagine that the world has a population problem. And this population problem is going on in places like Pakistan and Bangladesh because, dag-nabbit, those little brown people will just not stop having children. Well, I looked into it, and I've got a surprise for you. A child born in America will use between 600 and 1,000 times more natural resources and energy than a child born to a woman in Bangladesh. Suppose you went to Bangladesh and you met a woman, a young woman of childbearing age, and she told you that her ambition in life was to have 1,000 children. You'd be appalled. I mean, what kind of social responsibility is this? What kind of person are you that you want to do this? An American woman having one child is having the equivalent of those 1,000 infants. Now, another interesting thing about this suggestion made by the mushroom, that each woman should rear one natural child. When we think of population control schemes, the first objection is, my God, you can never sell this to people. They have these religions, they have these centuries of tradition and so forth. It just won't wash. Notice that what the mushroom suggested is most likely to be accepted by the person most important to convert. We don't want to convert the women of the back streets of Bangladesh to this policy. We want to convert the women of Sherman Oaks, Malibu, Santa Monica, Grosse Pointe, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, because these are the women whose children are using the resources. So here is, in one sentence, the mushroom was able to answer a question I put to it with a suggestion I had never dreamed of that seems, at first glance anyway, to stand up pretty well, and I've spent a lifetime trying to figure out ways to solve human problems. See, we're a little stupid because we're all alike. And something years ago the mushroom said to me, which deals with this, was people are always this question of enlightenment. And the mushroom said, for one human being to expect to obtain enlightenment from another is like a grain of sand on the beach expecting to attain enlightenment from another grain of sand on the beach. Don't you get it? You're all grains of sand. I mean, Joe Schmo, who runs a body shop, and Mukta Ruby Baba are the same people. There's no difference between those two guys. No reason to assume so. So I think we need help, and that little exercise in what do you do about the population problem shows that there are suggestions out there we haven't thought of, avenues we haven't tried. When I thought about why haven't we tried this avenue of one woman, one natural child, it took me about 30 seconds to understand that it's real hard to make a buck in a situation when population is retracting at a rate of 50% per generation. And our whole world is based on making a buck. I told this idea to someone and they said, but if the women of Malibu stop having children, they will lose all their political power because political power is numerical. This is not true. Political power is power. And if the women of Malibu stop having children, they will be quite a bit wealthier than they already are. Notice that this deciding to voluntarily have one natural child is also very helpful to you personally. That a woman will have to work less hard, will have to cut fewer deals with the in-place structure of male dominance if she has only one child. A woman with two children has got to cut a deal with male dominance, or she has a trust fund or something. The reason we are, I think, we have a tendency to clench at this suggestion and not follow it through is because we imagine that there is something holy and sacred about the nuclear family and that we don't want to attack this biological unit that has such integrity. But this is a bunch of nonsense. The nuclear family has no biological integrity whatsoever. It's a creation of the post-industrial Reformation. The extended family is the natural human unit to ease the pressure of child rearing on young women and to give everybody the benefit of contact, intergenerational contact, and so forth. No, this nuclear family that our politicians are always beating their breasts about is the absolute cauldron of neurosis in this society, as far as I can see. And when you look at the demographics of what is happening, the number of women with the number of households that are one woman, one child household, I think you can see that maybe our unconscious has already been in communication with the mushroom, and it's just the ego who's going to get the news last. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it's an example of how these things offer solutions to human problems. And if it can offer solutions to a human problem like overpopulation by 6 billion people on a planet, then it can surely take care of the needs and concerns of a group of rainforest hunter-gatherers that numbers 70 or so people. I doubt they can conceive of a question that it doesn't have an answer to, because it can operate on many levels simultaneously. And this is an example of consciousness in action. You see, me plus nothing had nothing new to say about the population problem. Me plus psilocybin had a whole new take, a suggestion. We can swat it down and ultimately decide it's a bunch of malarkey, but at least there was a new thought, a new try, a new hope. This is the consequences of consciousness. And we're beset by problems like this. And we shouldn't assume that they are insoluble simply because we haven't solved them. In fact, we must assume that they are soluble, or else we are not going to have a place to hang our hat in 50 years. But the solutions come through an act of humility, an act of opening to the dynamic of nature, the feminine, the psyche. The ego is the calcareous knot of tumorous tissue that stands outside of all that and cannot be trusted and cannot be relied upon. And so by attempting to dissolve that, to mitigate its hard edges, to smooth it out into the greater context of being, then we really discover what humanness is about, because humanness is not something that can be encompassed from the point of view of the ego. That's why having created the ultimately egoistic society, we've created a society with so little humanity in it, you know. And I see the psychedelics as and make the world a better place than we found it, which is certainly not our record so far. But it's not too late. I mean, H.G. Wells called history a race between education and disaster. It's not mere coincidence, nor even mere synchronicity, that at this moment in time and space, with these tremendous crises bearing down upon us, that we have reached out to the archaic peoples with a new attitude, not an attitude of how can we enslave them, but how can we learn from them. And my hope is that here in the final ticking of the clock of history, we are going to end our prodigal descent into the desert world of the ego and return with what we have learned, the fruits of the prodigal journeying of the errant son, which is what history has been, return with the fruits of that prodigal wandering to the larger human family that waits on us in the rainforests, in the deserts, in the marshes, in the thorn forests of this planet. The archaic people are waiting for us to get on the train, and then the train will be able to depart. But we have to awaken to our past, and then we can set a course toward a meaningful future. That's the wrap, basically.